Well, good evening, crew. Welcome to the otherworldly. Welcome to the soil zone. It's amazing what grainy IR video and scary music can do. What you've been seeing on your screen has come to be known as the Taqaddum object. It was captured in Iraq over Taqaddum Air Base. Back in 2017, but wasn't released to at least DVids, if not Arrow, until 2025. The ISR platform that is filming this is a dirigible. It's basically a security dirigible over the airbase. Aerostats, same as you see deployed sometimes in the continental United States. They have these pods equipped on them. Now, Arrow looked at this particular object, and even though the grainy video and the scary music that I've added will conjure up ideas of one sort, they've determined within a pretty high degree of accuracy that it is, as the Chinese say, balloons. Yes, a cluster of balloons. Commercial grade foil balloons. Very scary. Crew, I hope you're all doing well out there. It is Memorial Day weekend. My compound is in danger of being overrun by half-drunk rednecks on side-by-sides and four-wheelers, headed deep out into the woods to go fishing, sit by campfires, to talk about people they like or they don't like, or sports ball, or what their kids are doing. Given that it's a weekend of solemn remembrance, rather than throw all the hype and whatever week we're on now of the back and forth of what's usually in the news over the weekends, over the last couple weeks, in order to manipulate stock and oil markets, I decided to, and I had the day off myself, being Sunday, Memorial Day weekend, I gave it to myself. I decided to do a deep dive into what the Department of Defense, which is temporarily known as the Department of War, is making such a big deal out of in order to help keep your mind off of certain topics. It's amazing the lengths that they are going to, but at the same time, everybody could use a break now and then. So, let's take a break together and see if we can all have a little fun with this topic tonight. It is a serious topic, but not for the reasons that are packaged and sold to you. The military takes images and video very seriously. They take base and installation and facility security incredibly seriously. So it results in very in-depth studies like this, and this is the unclassified report September 10th, 2025 of what AARO, which is the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office under the Department of Defense. They're the agency that is tasked with doing their best to figure out some of these videos. And the video that I showed you in the intro with the scary music and the grainy images, they determined themselves are balloons. But you can still find channels on TV that will include this footage in much the same manner that I just did in their presentation to sell you the theme of aliens, UFOs, UAPs, unidentified phenomena, mystery and intrigue, Mulder and Scully. I'm going to show you guys some stuff tonight that you may or may not have seen from other sources, but in the context of everything, it's interesting. Now, to the credit of the government, like any other PR campaign, fluff campaign, distraction campaign, there is 99% of the soup, so to speak, is broth. But sometimes they mess up and they put a little chunk of goodness in there. And that's what I found reviewing the second tranche, the second layer of files that was released on the 22nd, just Friday. There's one or two good pieces in there, but most of it can be explained away. So let's dive in a little bit here, shall we? And video's still running of the object. So here's another Middle East object. I want you to pay very close attention to the shape and trajectory of this object. Whoop, there it went. Play that again. Interesting, huh? Let's see what else we can learn from this video. I'm going to restart this, but I want you to watch. There's people walking up and down a road, at the beginning of the video, and I want you to pay attention to their clothing and the wind. See the wind, see the object. Then as the camera pod goes to track, see how it's deviating off from the crosswind? Watch that again. You can catch it a few frames back. It seems like it's a straight line, but it's really not. Watch it real close. The camera is going to pan in a straight line. But watch the object in relation to the reticle, the center reticle. You can see it's kind of fighting that crosswind a little bit. Filmed orbs over your house in Florida with traditional camera or infrared. What do you got? And you have a stabilized gyroscopic platform to film these with. One more time. See the wind? See there, right there, you can see it really struggles in a crosswind. It's ever so slight. So file that in the back of your mind, that video. So here's the U.S. Department of War's website. I don't know how many of you have bothered to go and actually look at any of this stuff. I spent a good time today looking at it. And there's a lot of information here, and at the same time there isn't. I've been interested in aerial phenomenon, ISR systems, tracking. I just like a good mystery myself. Nothing wrong with that. And whether you want to believe what these things are, whatever you want to believe these things are, you will drive yourself crazy if you don't let observations and facts and science speak for itself in the overall pot of information that you have. There's always a percentage that can be explained very easily. There's a large percentage that can be explained very easily. Natural phenomenon, man-made objects, top secret platforms. But there's always a couple percentage points in there that don't have good explanations. Maybe you don't have all the information. But by the time you, what's the old saying? No matter, I'm having a blank now. I'm blanking on what I wanted to quote, but basically it's, if you've looked at all the evidence and you have ruled out everything, then whatever is left, however unlikely, can be the explanation. And I know I butchered that quote horribly. Yeah, same here, Stella Blue, 1972, when the Pursue Directive was announced and this stuff started to get put on the web and the disclosure hearings and all that happened, it's like, oh, myself, I felt, oh, well, that means none of this is true. But there is hope. It's being used for means other than what I think many would like to see it. But the people up there, your rulers, they're not going to tell you the truth for the right reasons. They'll show you stuff for all the wrong reasons. We'll get to it, Charlotte. I'll show you what I'm thinking. Let's look at some of these UAPs that were released. You know, this top secret information. Now, I've shown you two. One was Baroons, the other a round orb that seemed to be affected by the wind and traveled in a straight line, you know, exhibited what they call ballistic motion, you know, motion that is in line with our current understanding of flight, aeronautics, physics, all that kind of stuff. But obviously not a craft we're familiar with. Is it Occam's razor that I butchered horribly? Yeah, I cut myself with Occam's razor. Cut myself deep with Occam's razor. Now let me sweeten the pie a little bit for you guys. Since naturally you're probably picking up on my skeptic tone and more skeptic presentation. Here's one I can't explain, and Arrow can't explain either. And it's this Syrian UAP instant acceleration. Let's take a look at that. That thing had a yeet factor of about 10,000. I've got no explanation for that. Nothing that I'm aware of, even things I can't talk about, can perform aerial maneuvers like that. Quite impressive. Also impressive was the fact that the observation ISR pod equipped on that platform was able to get a lock on it. That's that small box that put around the object. For even if it was just a moment in time, but the AI equipped targeting pod and the analytical projection processing unit on that targeting pod would not be able to maintain a lock when it got into the yeet speed, where it just became a blur of pixels. So let me continue on with the theme of this website here. And what this website is to anyone that's watched this or been interested in the phenomena that is unidentified flying objects, unidentified aerial phenomena, whatever you want to call it, unidentified aerial vehicles, undersea, unidentified underwater, all the different acronyms. Excuse me. The reason it's so acronym heavy all the time is because most of the observations are done by the military. As far as capturing real good images. Not that there's not civilian organizations that do as well. But most of what is on this site here, let me do the TLDR for you all, has been in the public sphere for a very long time. The exact purpose of this Pursue directive out of the White House, out of the TJ administration, for whatever reason they decided to do it, one thing they did do well was to compile information that's been spread out in the public sphere, the civilian sphere, the government watching sphere, NICAP, organizations like NICAP and MUFON and other civilian agencies that are trying to explore and research this phenomenon and also hold the government accountable for, at least to the people, for what it knows and what information it has compiled on the same subject. A lot of the FOIA requests over the last 20 years has pulled this into the public sphere, but now we've basically compiled and basically not authorized, but proven a lot of the information that these other agencies have worked very hard to get their hands on, or authenticated that it did exist. And let me show you an example of that. If we go down to this second release, okay, up here you can search records between all agencies. Okay. All releases, either one or two, all types, an audio file, image files, PDFs like documents, and videos. Okay. Actually, let me back this train up just a little bit. Let me read you one more that, to my knowledge, was not released into the public sphere at any time because it was relatively recent. And it's this one right here. It's this USPER narrative by a senior U.S. intelligence official, national intelligence official. and I'll read this to you. This is his account, not all that long ago, late 2025, of UAP being observed by multiple military personnel, hit on radar, and observed at very close proximity to this individual and other personnel, including pilots of the test range. So let me just read through his account for you. In late 2025, during early evening daylight hours, I, a senior U.S. intelligence officer, along with a colleague and 2 pilots, departed our Joint Operations Center in a helicopter. Our mission was to investigate loud thuds heard in the mountains on the test range, which coincided with the UAP sightings reported over the previous several nights. We aimed to search remote mountain areas for possible debris or objects that might explain the orb-like sightings. After leaving the JOC, we flew a low-altitude map of the Earth route through the mountain range for several hours. Multiple times we spotted debris on the ground and descended for closer inspection. Each time we determined it was remnants from rockets and other projectiles that had crashed during the years of weapons testing on the range. As we continued searching near areas of reported orb activity, we discovered a large cave entrance with no visible end in sight. The terrain around the entrance offered no safe landing spot, so I instructed the pilot to orbit it several times for observation. We noted the location and then pressed on. Running low on fuel, we headed to a prearranged rendezvous point to meet a ground team and let my colleague disembark. The 2 pilots and I then proceeded to a pre-positioned tanker on the range for refueling. Our plan was to return to base afterward, but the JOC radioed with a request to search a nearby mountain for debris spotted by one of the ground teams. By this time, the sun had set, and the pilot switched to forward-looking infrared, FLIR, and night vision goggles, NVG, while I continued using the unaided naked eye. After a brief search of the mountain yielded no findings, the pilots began navigating back to the JOC to end the mission. I then received a message from the JOC. Radar had detected hits several miles uprange from our position, the same area where the UAP activity had been observed on prior nights. I relayed this to the pilots, and we altered our course to intercept. What followed was a series of close UAP encounters lasting over an hour. En route, ground teams reported spotting a UAP on FLIR, describing it as super hot, low to the ground and moving east then south at high speed. The object then split into 2 and changed direction. Upon arrival, we scanned the area using NVG, FLIR, and the naked eye. The ground team suddenly radioed that the object had risen from the ground, approached within 10 feet of the helicopter, dropped below us, and then sped away. The pilots observed it through NVGs and saw it split into 2 as a smaller object emerged before it accelerated out of sight. We briefly pursued but broke off, unable to match its speed. At one point, the JOC informed us that several fighter jets had launched on a training mission in our operating area and requested their assistance in identifying the UAP. Minutes later, the JOC directed us to nearby radar detections. We took up a hovering position at approximately 700 feet above the ground level. In the distance, we saw countless orange orbs swarming in all directions against the backdrop of the mountain. The display lasted several minutes before fading. The JOC then redirected us to our previous position based on fresh radar hits. I provided coordinates to the pilots, and we moved to intercept, hovering again at 700 feet AGL. Through NVGs, the pilots and I, using the naked eye, observed 2 large orbs flare up side by side, close to the helicopter, stationary and just above the rotor disc to our right. They were oval-shaped, orange with a white or yellow center, and emitted light in all directions. After a few seconds, a 3rd orb flared up below the pair, followed by a 4th below that, forming a total of 4 or 5 in a T formation underneath the original 2. Moments later, they dimmed in reversed order, remaining stationary until they vanished from view. The entire event lasted 10 to 15 seconds. I didn't take photos as I was focused on assessing what it was and whether it posed a threat. After this encounter, the pilots briefly considered landing due to the object's proximity, but opted to remain hovering at 700 feet above ground level for further observation. We then spotted the fighter jets entering visual range at about 23,000 feet AGL. It might have been 2,300. Not clear on the document here. Identifiable by their blinking navigation lights. As watched from afar, the same type of orbs appeared directly above the fighters. They flared up one at a time in a horizontal formation, matching the jet's speed and flight path. After 10 to 15 seconds, they dimmed sequentially and disappeared. This repeated several times as the jets transited the airspace and eventually landed. I remarked to the pilots that it seemed the same orbs we had encountered were now chasing the fighters. We also observed orange orbs flaring up and down around us for several minutes, forming a distinct triangle before vanishing. Low on fuel, the pilots decided to return to the JOC. After landing, I briefly spoke with them, mostly to express thanks. We were virtually speechless after these observations. I then entered the JOC for a quick debrief before driving home. That's quite an account. That's quite an account. And that's from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence for an incident in 2025, late 2025, in the western United States. So over one of our ranges. That's very interesting. But I'm selecting these for you to keep in the back of your mind. There's another saying, hopefully I don't butcher this one. Technology that's out of your comprehension, or technology that's so advanced that it's outside of the comprehension of what you have in the paradigm of your mind, will appear to be like magic. It'll appear to be phenomena that you can't explain. What would your impression be if you could imagine yourself in the position of this officer as he's observing these things around him? He made very professional remarks as far as relaying his observations without speculation. To the fact, appearance, behavior, locations, transit. Did a good job. Remember the video I showed at the intro of the Baroons in the Texas Panhandle, a ground surveillance radar tower near one of our secure nuclear assembly sites and storage sites for nuclear weapons. Took this photo. It's also been released. I wonder if that is a interdimensional cat or a Baroon. Now, in New Mexico, Sandia National Lab, Sandia Base, over a few years, they compiled these reports. 116 pages, and I'm going to show you this for a very specific reason. So this was touted as a huge document download of secret intermilitary or intergovernmental information that's never before been released. However, as I was looking at this, I recognized the format of these pages, and I realized I had seen them before. Many years ago. From this secret document. And let me see if I can cross-reference this for you. Remember, these are all supposed to be super top secret releases, right? All new. It's come to be known as the La Paz catalog, and it's actually been out for about 15 years, 16 years. Let's see if I can find an exact NICAP document. So much information on their site. Might be under Project Grunge. Project Grudge. Should have bookmarked it because I had it up earlier. Well, dang it. Here's a NICAP.org website That's from 2005. Oops. And basically, this La Paz guy was known. Green fireballs in the western report on Captain Edward J. Rappelt. Yeah. Well, dang it. I should have booked. That's my fault. I apologize to you. I had the NICAP old heritage site pulled up at one point in time today, where they had a very older looking PDF matrix that was all these observation decks or reports for this 19th District OSI. My point to make was, it's nothing new. It's decades old information that they released again. Oh, sorry if I black screened you there, but yeah, there's not much recent information really on these disclosures. Anyone that's followed it relatively closely will recognize a lot of it. And some of it, like some of these audio files from the Redstone and Apollo missions, Mercury missions, you know, they're talking about dye packs and stuff like that. Let me turn the pause the music for a second here. But here's the audio clip of one of the crewed missions of Project Mercury Redstone 4, Liberty Bell 7. Recovery team discusses a dye pack in the water that didn't activate. I don't know what's so exciting about that. But in these instances where they're recording this data, it's important to know how they're doing it, the equipment that they're using, and what's out there. Because they can take pictures like this from dirigibles and unmanned systems and other ISR pods mounted on military aircraft. It's important to understand the capability of our systems in relation to the technology that they're capturing on the other side. And what are they using for the most part? It's simply these, over CONUS, over all the different theaters in the world that the U.S. military is operating. It's typically ISR platforms like the dirigibles, the Sky Guardian MQ-9s, the Reapers, these type of equipment. And what they can do is incredible, both optically and in the infrared spectrum. And the technology is advanced far beyond what I think most people understand, even with these fixed-wing platforms. Just the electronic technology that is equipped on these things is out of your mind. That's why most of the videos are blacked out, you know, because just the telemetry data and the on-screen data alone is secret or above. And they're modular systems. You can fly up to 40 hours in all types of weather, safely integrate into civil airspace. The platforms are available to both joint forces and civil authorities, anywhere in the world, day or night. Outfitted with Lynx multimode radar, advanced electro-optical infrared sensors, automatic takeoff and landing capabilities, in a 24-meter package, wingspan package. And they're modular. They do these mission kits where they can outfit the platform in these different styles or different mission modes. (40,000 feet altitude, 40 hours, 6,000 nautical mile range. A lot of these are brochures, like if you skip into General Atomics and be like, hey, you want to sell me one of your drones I hear all these good things about? Sure, bud, here's the options. What color leather seats you want? So we got SOAR pods for identification, geolocation, SIGINT, formation of electronic order of battle, Sledgehammer, which is electronic attack capabilities, in support of multi-mission radio frequency spectrum operations, so spectrum warfare. Self-protection pods, they probably went through a lot of those here in the last couple weeks, month or two. Echo Advanced Payload, REAP, Rosetta Echo Advanced Payload. Seamless communications, digital interoperability, connecting sensors to shooters, so target acquisition. Anti-submarine warfare and sonobuoy dispenser pods. A NATO pod that we let everybody else in the world have. Airborne laser communication systems. High data rate and low probability of intercept detect through airborne laser communications. Airborne laser communication systems. So they're in contested space, contested airspace, where they can't talk through radio because the spectrum is in such disarray. Jamming, other methods, detection. They can transmit their data to other airframes or to, depending on the location, of course, fixed installations by laser, and never have to transmit over the open radio waves. That is impressive. Absolutely secure point-to-point communications and data. Never get a chance to hear them on the radio. So these are the devices, the airframes typically, that's capturing this stuff. And for the inside sauce, if you guys want to see all types of raw data, because I'll give you the trade secret, what is happening here with this site, okay? Here's what's really going on. Most of the stuff accrued here on the U.S. Department of War website is released through Arrow Did I close there? I might have closed that tab. See if I can pull it back up again. Through the All Domain Anomaly Research Office, you can go through and look at all kinds of information about UAPs, UAP reporting trends, and it'll give you a hint to what the fine folks at Arrow are figuring most of this stuff is through the case resolution, outcomes, and the morphology. And look here, almost a little bit over half of closed cases of what are reported by trained observers in the military and other military sources, either through these ISR platforms or, you know, direct reports like the National Security Administration officer, is reporting balloons. Another good chunk are satellites. So between balloons and satellites, you've got, you know, basically 80% of your UAP cases figured out. Now, another interesting thing, the morphology, the description of the UAPs, a lot of them are these orbs and round spheres. Another good chunk are just lights. They had to make the Tic Tac because of the Colonel David Fravor, the Tic Tac UFO. And just like YouTube, sensationalism rules the day to get hits and clicks and eyeballs. They've got to come up with, you know, wild theories. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this stuff isn't possible or doesn't exist. It's just in a lot lower instances than what's being portrayed. The truth is out there. Don't give up hope. Is it going to be presented to you like this on a silver platter with piles and piles of top secret information that was declassified and laid out and curated for you to peruse on an easy chair? No. They're doing that for a completely different reason. And it's like junk food. It's junk food for your mind. Now, what if a big reason, or there's multiple reasons for them to roll this out and get you thinking about UAPs and aliens and visitors from other dimensions, visitors from other planets, or let you, you know, take it and run with it down the religious side of things, whether they're watchers or Nephilim or giants or the fallen or any number of other entities as described throughout history. What if it's more simple than that? One of the reasons. What if it's they don't want you to know what we're up against from our adversaries? What if a good reason is they don't want their capabilities known? Because you have to test these airframes out in open space, and it's impossible with today's technology available on the civilian side and just the sheer number of people on the planet versus open space. I'm going to show you some stuff that is years old, but It's out there. It's been out there for a long time. It's not talked about much in the frame of reference of the UAP phenomenon. And I want you to imagine this stuff that I'm going to show you here in a minute as our adversaries have been working on this technology for decades. What could they have come up with by now? I'm going to show you two videos. Here we go. Ready?
Here's the drain that flushes sugar out of your...
Hang on, let me get through this ad here. Hang on, not the one I wanted to show. Here we go. Here we go. Sorry about that.
2、1、発進します。
This is the world's first spherical flying machine, developed by the research department at Japan's Ministry of Defense. This machine can hover like a helicopter and take off and land vertically. But because it works like a propeller plane standing vertically, it can fly forward at high speed using wings, which a helicopter can't do. This machine also has 3 gyro sensors, so even if it hits an obstacle, it can maintain its attitude and keep flying through automatic control.
まずは外側が丸いことによって、あらゆる姿勢で着地できて、地上移動ができます。また壁にもくっつくことができます。丸ければ、地上をただ転がっていくことできますけども、自分の意思通り、意図通りの方向に行くためには、操縦方式をですね、通常とは反対に後方にある操縦打面を前方に持ってきたという飛行機の形式を採用しております。水平飛行の時の推進力を得るためのプロペラ、そしてその時には、この翼がですね、揚力を発生します。でその状態から、離着陸の時には上を向くと、上を向いた時には、このプロペラが、浮力を発生させます。でその時も姿勢は、操縦打面で行います。で降りた後は、操縦打面とプロペラを使ってまた地上を転がって移動すると。私航空機の研究開発に携わってまして、その中で、水平飛行をした後に垂直に立てる飛行機というものがあって、その飛行機は、非常に離着陸が難しいという問題がありました。その問題を解決する一つのアイデアとして、周りを丸くするとか姿勢制御の方式を従来と変更するといったアイデアを検証するということが最初のきっかけになります。市販の部品を組み合わせてその丸いものを検証しただけですので、これの性能自身は全くの意味はないんですけども、ホバリングだと
Now this was the Japanese
速度はですね、空中でホバリングして
14 years ago. Imagine what the Chinese have developed
60km 程度まで出るんでは
in
ないか
other
と
nation
考えています。
This flying machine weighs 350 grams, is 42 centimeters in diameter, and is made of commercially available parts costing a total of around $1,400 US. As it can take off and land anywhere, it's hoped that this machine will be able to reach places that were hard to access by air before for use in rescue and reconnaissance. Dig in for news.
Right back in its cup. Now, what about glowing orbs and strobes and lights?
Hello.
Take a look at this guy.
My name is Adam Ferrari, Chief Executive Officer of Phoenix Energy. I look forward to you joining us at our next investor webinar, where you can drill deeper into our 9 to 13% annual interest rate bond offerings and see how our company has become an emerging leader in the oil and gas industry. In 2024, Phoenix Energy rose to become the 11th most prolific oil and
Or the size would be much bigger.
This is the Interceptor. It's the creation of Palmer Luckey, who might be the world's most unlikely weapons mogul. He's the founder of a multi-billion-dollar virtual reality company. He's also...
I hate that when those tabs play after the fact. Oh, I was had my mic off. Sorry about that. But let me find. I'm going to try and take a second to find a very impressive video for you guys. Nope, we're not frozen. We're still here. But I'm going to try and find a video that I had pulled up earlier today. Actually, talk amongst yourselves for just a minute. I'll be right back.
We built a $49 garden hose.
Doug Jr.'s mustache, is it...
Okay, I don't know why, crew. I cannot find that video back. But basically, it was a lot of the technology that you just saw in some of these other videos. And it was... They had 5 of these spherical drones inside an enclosed space, and they would flash orange with white centers. They would flash blue and purple and different colors and fly in formation and make diamonds, make 3-dimensional diamonds, make triangles, and pretty much fly in a line like a cigar shape, all at the same speed. And, you know, within the relative known physics, come to stop, change direction, move in unison like they were one object. And I think this video that I had found earlier today that I'm describing to you was like 14, 15 years old. So just imagine where military and even civilian aerospace technology and drone technology and power sources, battery technology, communications and control integration through satellites and other means. You know, it's a decade and a half past that. And so just imagine where we're at. So, you know, keep that in the back of your mind when you're looking at disclosure of UAP and other technologies. It's not cut and dried, and a good many years was spent, you know, and still being spent on the topic, but now it's reached a strange phase. It was more cool when the government denied everything. It was more of a challenge. Now it seems they're struggling to work from the other direction, and that is convince you of something. It's very strange. Food for thought. Food for thought. Anyway, if you're curious, here's a good site, radartutorial.eu. I'll see if I can show at least the bottom, or the top here. And probably won't let me do it while I'm... Oh, it might. We'll show you that much of it. Not eating that food. Hi, Tracy. Oh, no, I'm off kilter a bit. But if you want to learn about radars, here's a very good site. And this is the APY-8 links that is in a lot of these unmanned drones, and that's the radar system. And here's the pods. You can go in and check out a lot of the ISR pods, these cameras, the cameras that you're looking through, or the visual systems and the infrared FLIR systems that you're looking through. They're either the AN AAQ-33 snipers that are manufactured and developed and manufactured by Lockheed Martin, and they're in the F-15E, the F-16 platforms. The AN AAQ-28 Lightning, which is a Northrop Grumman product, and the U.S. Air Force uses it. The U.S. Marine Corps, our allies, NATO F-16s in AV-8B Harriers, and they're also camera pods equipped with FLIR and targeted tracking. But most of the time what you're seeing through the drones and through the dirigible platforms are the L3 Harris WES cams in the MX series, and that's MX-15 and MX-20. And those are almost exclusively in the MQ-9 Reaper drones. So some of the most advanced ISR platforms that we have are capturing these things. Let's see, are there any of these that I haven't shown you? I made myself mad. I could not find that. That was the perfect video to show you how synchronized and how closely controlled some of these drones are. I could not find it back, so I apologize. There's a close-up. Into the cloud, out of the cloud. Why couldn't that simply be a Chinese military spherical drone? It's one thing I found very interesting throughout all the, and I maybe I shouldn't find it interesting, since it is UAP after all, and not NHI disclosure. That's the other. That's something that I find very interesting with this whole Pursue Act is it's all UAP and no NHI, non-human intelligence evidence. Not a shred of that. So no selfies of a reptilian or a gray or a Nordic. None of that is being even remotely discussed. You know, it's staying. They're staying very firmly in the UAP territory. Another resource that you guys can go to if you're curious is the ARROW site, the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. And you can see all kinds of stuff. In full form. But it will disappoint you too. Baroon. There's still, let's see, PRO11 in Europe. Looks like they're still doing analysis on it. And I need to holler if I've showed you this before tonight. Yeah, that could be camera, basically the camera gimbal correction. Or maybe not. That could be non-ballistic trajectory. It's hard to say without being able to see any of the data. Very scary. And most of the information that you'd want to see is on DVIDs, the Defense Visual Information I can't talk. Distribution. Defense Visual Information Distribution Service is also a very interesting website if you're curious. And it has B-roll footage. You know, if you go to the main site, it's basically a compilation of open, unclassified, authorized media clips, whether it's print media, videos, and it's everything from, boring ass commencement speeches at some military commencement ceremony, to podcasts, to, footage like this of unclassified, no chain of command, chain of custody documentation, released footage. So that's where most of the UFO disclosure Department of War website gets their, this media has already been on Arrow, it's already been on DVids. That's what I'm trying to tell you, is it's been out there. So there's some stuff you can't explain, not easily explained, but not being able to find that drone video has really burnt my biscuit. I'm really upset with myself that I didn't save that. Anyway. Okay, we've been going on almost 2 hours of the live stream. It's 10 o'clock. I bet if you go outside right now, you can see, and you look to the west, depending on where you're at in the U.S., but if you're in North America and it's dark and it's clear, you can go outside and see 2 orbs right now if you look to the west, northwest. And that is a bright display of the planets Jupiter and Venus. You guys want to see some UAPs that were determined to be burbs? Here's some government burbs. Top secret government burbs. So crew, the truth is out there. Just don't be fooled. Don't be duped. All right, how many we got hanging around still? Well, thank you, Charlotte. I hope you found it interesting. I hope it gave you something to think about, gave you a new perspective. Let's see what's in the FOIA reading room here. communication between Arrow and David Grush. What we got here? Oh, this was his. He talked about this on some of the, when he hit the podcast circuits, how he tried to, they gave him basically like a safe space to disclose everything he knew, in an effort to try and keep him from, on his side, not running afoul of classified, disclosure of classified information that he lawfully couldn't disclose, and also for them to give him, for the government to give him free rein to talk, since he's already took the status of a whistleblower, and they were trying to hash out those two positions and make a mesh to where he wouldn't get tossed in the clink for talking, and yet they could let him talk. I'm undecided about a lot of these characters in the disclosure movement. Some of them are just outright frauds and grifters. Some of them are very interesting. I think they felt compelled to come forward with things that they saw. By no means are 100% of the personalities you encounter in this disclosure movement to be trusted. You're welcome, Charlotte. Thanks for hanging around with the with the X-Files crew for a while. Thanks for being here. But yeah, you guys could spend hours and hours entertaining yourselves and distracting yourselves from the fact that most of the upper echelon of our society and our politicians are consumers of children. So, interesting stories, for sure. It's a very interesting topic. There's a lot out there for you to surf around on. Just use your brain when you're doing it so you don't get sucked down all the different rabbit holes, before you send donations of thousands of dollars to, energy handlers that can summon UFOs by playing Tibetan bowls in the desert and that kind of crap. Be careful of those, because those are out there too. So. I need to make a voice video. I did read one of the accounts of the, what was that guy? National Security. Where was the dude? It's got all types here. Oh, the U.S. Per Narrative Senior. I read this whole letter, Tracy. If you want to go back to that. I'll just shut my mic off and we'll just continue to peruse through some more of these creepy videos. If you do go to this site, I would stress that you can download everything within browser. Don't save anything to your computer or to your device. Let's Let's do release to all agencies, release to videos, and work backwards. If this long video does anything, it shows you the range and power of these pod systems that are mounted on these ISR platforms. There was several frames where it zoomed all the way out and then zoomed right on in to make out details of those tankers. Pretty impressive technology. But it all boils down to another video of a ball floating around. See if I can show you the orb of judgment that was spotted in Iran before bombing. Some of you guys might remember this.
It's awesome.
The orb of judgment. Rumored to also have been spotted over spots in Venezuela as well before U.S. military operations. You remember that, Tracy? Remember that coming out in the news? All right, Tracy, just for you, I'm going to read a document. Do you want the music on or off? I didn't know if you got here when I was reading in the early part of the stream. Yep. Let me find something to read for you here. Do you want the music on or off, Tracy, when I read? The Netherlands, 1948. Doesn't matter, okay. What else we got? Something interesting, We got some non-disclosed date incident summaries. What is this here? (1949). Is this worth reading? Oh yeah, there's some personal accounts here. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. So this looks like incident number 101, checklist of unidentified flying objects, 18 February 1948. In Kansas. Oh my gosh, that about ruined it. Hang on. I forgot the compressor was left on. My bad. Hello, lovely lace. Yeah, that was back in the day. 30 to 35 miles above the Earth. All right, let's see what this guy has to say. So, from Oscar Monig of the Texas Observer's Amateur Astronomy. It gives his address here in Fort Worth, Texas. Tangible proof that the fireball of February 18 over northern Kansas was just that, inasmuch as meteorites have been recovered from it. There were found, beginning April 24th, first several smaller fragments up to one of 4.5 pounds. Then a disturbed spot in a clover field led to the digging up of a piece of some 109 pounds embedded about 2 feet in the soil. The stone is what is termed as an acronidite, a technical name for an unusual type of stony meteorite. It is reported to be of a type which will deteriorate rapidly. A photograph of the trail of the meteor, made by amateur photographer Dwayne W. Ray of Norton, shows the vapor trail left in the sky by the explosion of the meteor, which was seen in Oklahoma, New Mexico, Colorado, Kansas, and Nebraska. It was made at Ray's home, 9 miles north of Norton, just 4 minutes after the meteor exploded. A smudge of blue-white smoke remained in the sky for an hour, February 18th. This photograph is in file under incident number 101. Further remarks are contained in the supplement. No, you shouldn't be vacuuming while doing this. Oh, let's see if there's something a little bit more meaty than meteorites. It's a Boise, Idaho object. Norman G. Markham, Main Hotel, Pueblo, Colorado. To Chief Signal Officer, U.S. Army, Washington, D.C. Oh, he's still talking about the Norgator, Kansas sky explosion of 18th February. Well, apparently it was seen in quite a few states. See what the CIA is talking about here. Oh, yeah, I remember looking into this. Intelligence report. 1973 declassified CIA. Summary: this report provides limited information on the Sari-Shangan weapons testing range to the facilities, work areas, security fencing, regional headquarters, and a warhead checkout unit. Limited information on following System 75 SA-2 and System 300 Aldan ABM-1 Kalash warheads. Rumored laser research and unidentified aerial phenomena. See, this is one of those odd CIA documents where they're doing definite espionage reporting and summaries, and it's almost like any UAP, UFO observations at the time are kind of just side remarks of what the true intelligence gathering purpose, was. What are you guys talking about in the chat? I don't think you have to worry about that. Interesting. According to hearsay. So this must be, let's see, yeah. Information report, not finally evaluated intelligence. Normally you wouldn't see hearsay get its way into a CIA document. So this is raw human intelligence, probably a technician at this facility. According to hearsay, experiments involving laser weapons were being conducted at an unknown location at the range. Supposedly the test involved powerful antennas, no further details. Well, remember the pod here on our current MQ-9 platform? Airborne Laser Communication System, ALCOS. ALCOS provides high data rate and low probability of intercept detect through airborne laser communications. So we've got that now, and the Russians were working on apparently trying to figure it out back in 1972, 1973. That's what I would lift from that statement, involving powerful antennas, laser weapons, laser communication devices. So here is on one evening in late summer 1973, source observed an unidentified phenomenon at Site 7 while watching a sport competition between Canada and the USSR on television. He stepped outside for some air and observed an unidentified sharp or bright green circular object or mass in the sky. The object was situated west of the site at an angle of sighting of approximately 70 degrees. The altitude of the object was undeterminable. Field comment: although there was no clouds in the sky that evening, source believed that the green mass would have been higher than cloud level. The source could not estimate the diameter of the object. Within 10-15 seconds of observation, the green circle widened, and within a brief period of time, several green concentric circles formed around the mass. Within minutes, the coloring disappeared. There was no sound, such as an explosion, associated with the phenomenon. Field comment: source had no opinion as to what this phenomenon was. There was no resultant rumors. Source could not provide any further details. So high strangeness over USSR testing sites in the 70s as well, making it back to the CIA. Interesting. Yep, that's the point I was trying to make earlier, was imagine where this technology is now and what they know now and what's truly not being disclosed. That's all they had to disclose from the CIA in Release 2 was just that 1973 report. See what Mulder and Scully had to say in Release 2. Nothing. Nothing. Release 1. What do they got here? Well, that's a lot of stamps. (1947 to 1968). Anything newer? '47. We got some photographs in here. Sites like Oak Ridge, Tennessee, potential propulsion systems. Newspaper clippings. Some scribbles. Where's the photos? Photos say 1,000 words, right? Anything of substance in here? No, not really. Go all the way to the end. What did I just do? I just close something. Messing around. Okay. FBI sighting. Here we go. Yeah, I closed it. I don't know why. (2023). I couldn't even let you know the day. September 2023. FBI Special Agent Mulder and Scully interviewed someone via FaceTime video. Well, at least in the X-Files, they got in a rental car and you got to see, the spooky scenes around Vancouver that truly gave that show an otherworldly appearance, especially people that aren't from that climate. So now they're doing it by FaceTime. The Mulder's getting fat behind his desk just doing FaceTime only and TikTok snaps. Blankety blank with blankety blank blank sat in on the interview. Blank and Redacted were in Redacted at the time of the interview. After being advised of the identity of the interviewing agents and the nature of the interview, Redacted provided the following information. Redacted was a redacted in the redacted of redacted. He'd been a redacted since Redacted and had 10 to 15 hours as a drone pilot. Well, I know some kids that have more than 10, 15 hours as a drone pilot. So, I don't know who they were talking to. Okay. Redacted. On September Redacted 23rd, Redacted was at Redacted with 3 other contractors and Redacted for LiDAR test with Redacted. After receiving a Redacted, the 5 of them got into 3 vehicles with Redacted driving the first vehicle and Redacted as her passenger. So we know at least one of those black bars is female. Interesting. 3 vehicles began driving south around 7:30 a.m. The sun was in the east with good visibility. I'm surprised they didn't redact the sun from this story. The 3 vehicles came to a gate that was giving Redacted trouble. At about 3/4 of the windshield up, Redacted saw a linear object with a super bright light on the east side of the object. The light was bright white and bright enough to see bands within the light. The object was metallic gray in color. It did not have any wings or exhaust. The object was smaller than a 737, 1 to 2 Black Hawk helicopters in length and was definitely bigger than a drone. The object was approximately 5,000 feet above ground level and moved east to west parallel to the ground. The object was visible for 5 to 10 seconds, and then the light went out and the object vanished. The sky was clear and redacted couldn't find the object again. The object stayed the same size and kept the same light intensity during the time Redacted observed it. He did not see the object as though they were coming over the small bridge at the gate until they were going through the gate. Redacted did not notice any interference with their vehicles. Redacted was annoyed when she first saw the object because the airspace had been restricted for the drone tests they were going to conduct. Redacted in the second vehicle tried to get Redacted to see the object, but was unsuccessful. That night a storm came through and the TV went out in Redacted hotel room. He was still freaked out and went downstairs to make sure all the TVs were out in the hotel and not just his. Redacted had weird dreams and had trouble sleeping for the first 2 nights after he saw the object. So one of the male black bars couldn't sleep, was freaked out. I just read that. Or no, that's okay, here's an expansion on that. I'll skip saying the redacted stuff because we wrung all the humor out of that rag the first time around. Okay, continuing September 2023, FBI special agent interviewed in person, it looks like this time. Supervisor sat in on the interview. After being advised of the identity of the interviewing agents and nature of the interview, they provided the following information. September 23 was with contractors, yada, yada, yada. Was driving to the site, covered that part. Covered who was in vehicles, so there was 3 vehicles. Between 7:15, looks like they're tightening up the details in this other document here. Between 7:15 and 7:30 a.m., drove down to a gate that restricted access to part of the property, attempted to open the gate remotely using a fob. The gate opened just a little and then closed on 3 separate tries. 4th attempt, the gate opened completely and stayed open. There were no prior operational problems with that particular gate. There were no operating issues with the gate after September. So there was electronic interference with the gate or some type of error induced. As was driving through the gate, she looked up and saw a cigar-shaped object with extremely bright light southwest of them, approximately 500 to 3,000 feet above the nearest tree line. The tree line was approximately 1 mile southwest. So imagine that, tree line a mile away. Yeah, that would be hard to gauge that exact, by the foot, being a mile away. She understood the length of Black Hawk helicopters, nose to tail. Light was pointing southeast, and looking at it, the light was like looking into the sun. The object was metallic bronze in color, had the length of 2 to 3 Black Hawk helicopters lined up nose to tail. The width of the object was approximately the width of 1.5 Black Hawks, but was hard to determine due to the light on the object's eastern end, which may have been obscuring part of the body. The object was completely silent. So imagine that, you're standing out in the open by a gate that just gave you trouble, gosh darn it. you look a mile away and there's this couple hundred, 100-foot long object, brighter than the sun, a half mile above a tree line, a mile away, hovering with no sound. The sky was clear with no clouds, and the object did leave, and I imagine they mean didn't leave any contrails. Mulder and Scully searched the sky but did not see the object again. Did not notice any interference with her vehicle's engine while the object was visible. She only observed the one object and felt it left when it saw them. That's unusual feeling to have. An inanimate glowing object, you feel it saw you. Drove to the test site where some dude who was a passenger in the second vehicle said he saw the object too. She would not have reported the object if she had seen it by herself. Several of her co-workers subsequently made fun of her due to her report. That's typical, isn't it? You go out in the field, you smoke a little doobie, try to relax, you see some shit. No, I'm joking. That's creepy. There's nothing, I think that's, as a witness to something that's not explained, I think that's got to be one of the most frustrating things, is you see something, you feel and are aware of it with all of your senses, with your, you're clean, you're sober, imagining this person who's at, obviously working and involved in drone flight operations, I imagine that has got to be incredibly frustrating to have someone make fun of you for relaying what you've seen, what you witnessed. But it's kept pilots quiet and military members and all that stuff for decades and decades. So she would not have reported the object if she had seen it by herself, but because this other dude had saw it. No photos or video of the object were taken or by the contractors. Had seen most of the aircraft and drones used by the U.S. military during her 15 years working at blank, 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 and had never seen anything like the object she observed. So that 3-block working at blank, 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 it could be any number of organizations. Poor gal. And the guy was freaked out and he couldn't sleep. Yeah, how do you explain that stuff? That would be, someone who's a drone operator and familiar with all different types of aerial platforms. I think that, if anyone, a witness like that would be able to pick out a spherical drone, a man-made spherical drone. You would think. Let's see. Did they expand on any of that? Oh, did they do a composite sketch? Yep. Here's your composite sketch. This is what she saw. Yeah, I bet it was hell working at blankety blank blank after that. But imagine you see this image when you're just out doing your job. Other people, other coworkers see it too, and you still get poked at. I'd be pissed. Well, this isn't a, photo of the location. This is a composite sketch that was generated. So, just to give you the idea. You got to remember, the first interview that Mulder and Scully did with this person was via FaceTime, so they weren't, the X-Files office was already converted into storage in a broom closet. They had fired Mulder years ago, transferred Scully. Skinner was out. They were doing the best they could and with what they had. Why do I keep doing that? I keep closing myself out of it. Yeah, it was basically more. Now we're getting into some FBI photos. Okay. So they submitted that to Arrow without a mission report, so you don't have any context to it. So, all right, crew. I think you got the gist of it. Conclusions: when you're out there in the field yourself, be very leery, explore all options. If you witness something, don't be afraid to report it, but understand that percentages of likelihood are as follows. You're seeing a Chinese Baroon, a totally not a spy Baroon from Z. You're seeing satellites, planets, and unless you see something like that poor lady drone operator did, that is so far and above obviously not any of those things, please make sure your phone camera is not made out of a potato. What was I like as a child? I was a child. I don't know how to answer that question. Borderline feral would probably be one description. There you go, Kung Fu Grasshopper. Stay away from tree lines and always carry a phone around. Auto close gates, yeah. Yeah, make sure your phone's out and ready to go when you're around a gate that doesn't work. So there you have it, crew. I hope you had fun tonight. If you enjoyed this kind of content, go ahead and leave a comment after the live stream closes out and give me a like, subscribe, do all the things, share with your friends, tell your grandpappy and grandma about me, introduce me to your children, tell your crazy Uncle Bob that still watches the X-Files about me. I am planning on the future of potentially getting a camera, a astrophotography camera that's remote controlled that I can put on top of the station roof. And I have a very good view to the north and west from my location, and I think I've mentioned it in a previous live stream. I don't know if they're genuine UAPs, but there's a lot of stuff late at night and in the wee morning hours that's flying around out there that is not aircraft. I'm not sure what it is, but we might find out together one night. So if the channel looks like it's doing very well and people start throwing me a little bit of money here and there, we'll have some nights like that where we just track some objects, maybe take a really good close look at the moon ball and some planets, and live stream, cover all that live. So, and might do some radio stuff too in the future. I'm still trying to gauge interest, overall interest in going, balls deep into radio operation and things like that. But I wanted to do a fun one. take a look at some UFO files together and technology that we currently have, and not meant to be a super serious discussion, but just to have a little bit of fun with it and throw in some of the data that I know with some of the data that was thrown out there and see where it all kind of lands. And as usual, after looking at some of this stuff, some of it I have more questions than I could ever, than I think I could find answers on my own. But yeah, feel relaxed now? You feel so relaxed? Good. That meant you were entertained. So I hope I did a good job of that tonight. And it was fun hanging out with all you and seeing your comments. I do read through as I'm presenting stuff, and don't be jealous, Tracy, now. Just breathe deep. I'm still talking to you. Uh-oh, I hear the black Hilliman copters coming for me. I can hear the Hilliman copters out there. Better shut her down before they land. But we'll do a night like this again. Actually, I do hear quite a few helicopters out there. I'm going to go take a look. Hopefully, yeah. We'll do a slow roll and shut down here, crew. I'm going to turn some music on and switch screens and go take a look at what all this helicopter racket is. It's getting closer. Okay, crew, it was just a live flight. The black helicopters have spared me for tonight. So I wish you all a pleasant and relaxing Memorial Day. I hope you had fun tonight. Be good to each other, crew. Keep an open mind. Be patriots. Stand up for your fellow men and women. Seek the truth. Seek what's right. Let science and reason and logic be your guide. And venture forward. Good night, crew. Until next time.